All right, how's everyone doing? I'm Rich CELENZA. Thanks for tuning into the Rich CELENZA Show. WTF are you talking about? So today I'm going to kind of take on a kind of a weird subject. I'm going to call it beating yourself up to look good. And I see this happening more and more and more. And again, I was one of these people that used to beat the shit out of my body to look a certain way that I thought looked good. And the one thing I'm going to get into very quickly is when it comes to your body and the way you want to look, you have to realize a lot of times what you're going after is what you think looks good. Sometimes a lot more than what other people think looks good. But we get caught up thinking this is either the way people should perceive me or the way they're going to accept me looking, or they're going to give me more attention, or whatever that is. And sometimes you have to realize first and foremost is, why do I want to look a certain way? Is it to better myself physically? Or is it to get, like I said, attention from others? Is it because you're in the entertainment business, hypothetically, and you're doing it for a role? Are you doing it to feel better? Are you trying to fit into a certain group? All these different types of things. And I'll just start from the beginning, where I always thought being massive and strong was the way to look. I don't know why. And I thought that's what looked best on men. Excuse me. That's just what I thought. Now, as time went on, I found myself finding that that's a little ridiculous. But I still like it for myself. And I got to a point where I remember when I was younger, I was always pretty ripped throughout my life because I always worked out with weights and did sports. And then I was even, 17, 18. I had a big jump. I gained I don't know, when did I go from 100, I talked about this before, 138, 145 pounds to 220. But I was still pretty ripped and had some size. My stomach didn't have a six-pack like I did when I was younger, but I was still pretty jacked. But I gained another 10 pounds, 15 pounds. And I remember running into a girl, one of my friend's cousins. And she's like, "What happened to you, dude?" And I said, "What?" She's like, "You used to look so good. You were ripped. You had the best, really good body. And now you just what? You're way too big. You look, your head's too small. You look out of proportion." And I'm thinking, no, this is the way I didn't care. I was like, you don't know shit. But what was interesting is, and I wasn't doing it for anybody. What I thought, by being bigger and stronger, that's the way everybody thought that's the way I should look. And I thought that's what people expected of me. Don't know where that came from, but that was just my thing. But I do think a lot of people in society, men and women, think a lot of times that either they need to look a certain way for some reason. And I don't know who put that in their head. Now, I'm not telling anyone not to do whatever they don't want to, you do whatever you want to do. You know what's going to work maybe best for you. But a lot of times I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think, as you know, a lot of people go too far with many things. And again, it's your right to do that. I teach a program, Mastering Self-Confidence, for men. And the one thing I want to help them with more than anything is their identity and become comfortable in their own skin. But I think that's the hardest thing for a lot of people, is they're not comfortable in their own skin. Hold on a sec. Let me get a sip of my smoothie. I think a lot of us grew up, if you were kind of popular, and you fell in the popular group or whatever, and you looked a certain way and you got a lot of attention that way, wonderful. I do see a lot of people, though, regardless how popular they were, how pretty they are, they have a lot of insecurities as well. Or you may have grown up not that attractive, maybe not being that popular, and you carry around what, you think you don't look attractive, or you think you're obese, or you think you're too thin, or whatever the case may be. And a lot of times we transform ourselves into something, again, because I think a lot of us are transforming ourselves. The reality is because we want people to perceive us a certain way. It's not about us all the time. It's how's this group of people? How are my friends going to judge me now? And that can go from the simplest things to the extreme, right? And I think a lot of times, like I said originally, we're beating the shit out of ourselves a lot of times for no reason. Or we're doing things that are kind of just whack. Now, again, you could do whatever you want. And you see this with even tanning. People over tan, right? And again, you can do that. People lifting weights, you get big and then you get super big, right? Or women with anorexia, it's horrible. They want to get thin. They go too far and get too thin, right? And there's, same with makeup. Let's call it for what it is. A lot of women, as you know, and even men, they go too far with makeup. Do they go too far with certain things? And again, it's your right to do whatever you want to do. For me to sit here and judge you is exactly kind of what I'm talking about. Who gives a shit about me, right? You go do whatever makes you feel good. But sometimes you really do got to step back and say, am I doing this for me or for them? And I'm really going to touch on this, especially with plastic surgery. I get a lot of times in Botox and things of that nature, people do want to look better. And I get it, a lot of those things do work. But a lot of times they don't work either. And just be very aware of what you're doing. And I think the younger you start doing Botox or plastic surgery, you may not always be, heading in the right direction. I do think in years to come, though, they're going to master that. I really do. And I don't know how many years I think they're going to be able to make you look young for many, many years. I even think the skin on your body, they're going to be able to do a lot of different things, which is going to be amazing. Because if you are somebody that wants to look youthful, God bless you. But again, there's a difference between wanting to be youthful and then reaching so far where you start to look ridiculous. And again, that's on you. I don't know what, as far as what I think is ridiculous. But I just don't think a lot of people need to go that far with a lot of things. I think a lot of times the simplest looks are the best. And that doesn't mean, like, if you want to go with pink hair, women, men, whatever, green hair, a man bun, or do whatever you got to do, God bless you. But when I say, the simplest, it's just maybe even just not looking like you're always reaching or screaming for attention. Now, I get a lot of people do want attention by dressing a certain way. It could be instead of having, certain amount of earrings, you have hundreds of earrings. Instead of having a few tattoos, you have your whole body's blanketed in them. And if that's what you like, good for you. But when you're doing whatever you're doing, just to make sure, one is, think of the future and how you want to look. And I don't think a lot of people do that. They look at the here and now. So that would be one thing I address. My cousin, who was a model at a very young age, in the 80s, she used to, and I've said it on my podcast, please take care of your body. It is, it's worth it. In the future, you have to look when you're 50, if you plan on living a long life. What are you going to look like at 60, 70? What you're doing and conforming your body into. Is it really what you want to do? Is that really, it's not like back to tattoos, say for it's nothing against tattoos, but do you, and again, how you feel now, you may not feel like that in the future. You may even get more tattoos, I don't know. And I get we all fall into funny trends. If you look back at the 80s with big hair, or if you look back at, a lot of different things regarding fashion, we all sometimes go a little too far one way or another. And it's funny to look back on. But I think it's when we go extreme, that's what I'm saying. And even when it comes to, say, I see this with a lot of guys, getting heavy. I'm not even going to say obese. A lot of guys I see getting heavy always think they're going to kind of make a comeback, or it's just a phase. But I'm just here to tell you, most likely, it's not. And the more weight you put on, the harder it is to kind of get off after a certain amount of time. And I know, because I've seen it my whole life, I was very fortunate because I am able to gain weight and lose weight very quickly. But back to when I had my obsessions, again, I wasn't helping myself because I was lifting a lot of weights and I've beaten my body up. And I've talked about this in my previous podcast about beating yourself up. Sometimes even if you're a runner or if you do marathons, if you do triathlete, whatever you do, there comes a point in time where are you helping your body or hurting it? And I've done many things on my podcast regarding this. And I think a lot of us first do things, and I've discussed this, where we do it to just kind of get in shape and look and feel a little better. And then we become obsessed with it. And then before you know it, we keep doing more and more, and it becomes more and more extreme, which is great. Good for you if you can handle it. But again, just be very aware of what you're doing to yourself, because I don't think a lot of us do. I know I didn't, and especially in your youth, you don't think about these things. But I'm telling you, as you get older, all those things that you're doing, you could be lifting too many weights, you could be running an excessive amount of miles or lengths, you could be doing anything physical. And like I said, and that could go back to powerlifting, it could go back to, I don't care if you snow ski or whatever, just make sure you're not beating the shit out of yourself to the point where you're going to pay a price later. Because I see so many athletes in weightlifting, in all different areas that people have worked out in, and a lot of them, because I think a lot of us worked out that started in their, say, 70s or 80s or even 90s, they're going on 20, 30 years of working out. Where before, I don't think a lot of people in the past, say the 50s and 60s, let's say, or even maybe the 70s, they weren't working out like we are now. They weren't as intense as we are now, and it's just getting more and more intense. So I just wanted to do a quick podcast on that. Just please don't, you got to realize too, you were made a certain way. Again, nothing wrong with making improvements. And I've said this before, even in my book. I did a book called The Model Bible on modeling. There's always going to be people prettier than you, better looking than you, more fit than you, stronger than you, faster than you, have more money than you, all this bullshit. That doesn't mean you can't go after and be whatever you want to be. But the one thing I would say is, regarding looks, is don't always be chasing. I see so many people chasing certain looks or chasing something where they're never happy with what they look like. And I talk about this with one of my daughters too, especially my younger one. She always kind of has an issue with something. And I'm like, you're ridiculous. But it's if it's not a nose, it's a forehead. She looks very European, actually. And if it's not that, it's this and that. If it's not that, it's a neck. It's not that. It's like there's always an issue. She, again, never looks at her strengths. And she likes to do things that are very extreme with her hair or different things. And she went through that phase. And the more basic she is becoming now, the more she likes the way she looks. It's almost like she forgot, like, just being, I'm not saying normal. I'm not saying normal. But what I'm saying is not maybe putting on too much makeup, not doing hair in all these funky colors, learning things about herself that makes her look better and makes her feel better. And sometimes, again, simplicity is the key to that, not extremist, or being extreme, I should say, including myself. Like, I knew there had a point when I was 250 pounds, almost 250 pounds, I'm like, this is the worst I've ever felt. And now that I'm looking at my body in the mirror, I had the biggest belly I ever had, even though I was pretty strong. So I love the strength I had, but I'm looking at myself. I was profusely sweating. I had I was getting red spots by my chest. I don't even know what that was. I don't know if it was dry heaves. I don't know what the hell that was. Couldn't go up a flight of stairs. I always wanted to be 260 natural, and then I wanted to maybe even get on steroids and get up to like 300. I had all these. But I look at myself and say, Jesus, what have you become? This started out looking a certain way to become healthy and fit. I kind of wanted to look like maybe, Franco Colombo, because I was actually short and he was Italian and whatever. And then Sergio Olivia was from Chicago. And I said, yeah. So these were guys that I was like, wow, I'd like to, maybe look like these guys or whatever. Before you know it, like, I was following Dorian Yates, the mass monster. And I kind of said, oh my God, I want to be a mass monster. But what was I doing that for? And that would be the same as if somebody gets obsessed with anything regarding their looks. Like, I was disfiguring myself, truthfully. I wasn't helping myself. And there are other ways of doing that. I could have probably maybe dieted more or done different things differently. There's no getting around that. And I wasn't even a bodybuilder. I just had this certain drive that I liked being big. I still kind of do, but it's not as excessive. So I just wanted to do a podcast on this, but please don't beat the shit out of yourself. I can assure you a lot of people think you're very attractive or think you look good. You just probably, a lot of times when you look in the mirror, you're looking again at all your flaws, not your strengths. But if you look at a lot of people, a lot of times, at least me, I don't get it. I'm looking at them and going, wow, they look great. They look good. I don't sit there and critique their height, their weight, the length of their hair, the color of their hair, the skin tone, all these different types of things that I think social media and the public now more than ever and all these things have kind of put in your head to say you got to look this way at this age, or if you're not doing this, you got to be this healthy. You got to do this to be in style. All that shit. I always say set the trend, don't follow them, right? So anyways, I just thought I would do a podcast on that. If you get a chance, check out my YouTube channel. Doing a lot of fitness things. If you like health and stuff, I've been doing a lot of smoothies. I'm in Seattle. I just went to a really good smoothie place downtown Seattle over here. What was it? Juice Life? Oh, wait. Is it on my smoothie here? I just went there, literally. I forgot the name of it already. But yeah, I do a lot of different fitness-related things on there. My YouTube video, it's just Rich CELENZA. And my program is Mastering Self-Confidence. You could just go to my website, richcelenza.com, if you're interested in anything regarding that, because I truly do want to help people become comfortable in their own skin. It took me forever, and it takes time. It takes a long time, because especially if you've been beating the shit out of yourself your whole life and making yourself feel like you look like shit, or you don't look, every flaw that you have, you're kind of carrying it around with you, is ridiculous. You don't realize all the strengths you have. I talk a lot about that on my podcast and on my YouTube channel. You just haven't developed them, or you don't realize them, one or the other. But I'm also on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So if you get a chance, reach out. And if you're traveling, safe travels and take care.